So today on Retro For You, on the bench, we've got an Amiga 1200 that belongs to Francis from the Yorkshire Amiga Group. The machine powers on perfectly, but there is one problem. There's no RGB video output at all. Now the machine boots, the power LED comes on, but the monitor stays completely black. So somewhere between the Amiga generating video and the RGB connector, the signal is disappearing. So today we're going to have a look inside, trace the signal path, and see if we can fetch it back to life. Let's crack on! Francis really bought this motherboard installed in a tower system, and it was sold as faulty. He ended up swapping it out for a better board, and then he put this board inside this standard wedge case here. He's mainly been used as a bench test machine for experimenting with upgrades, as you can probably see when I take the top off. But recently it stopped producing RGB video output. So Francis has passed it to me to see if I can track down the fault. So first thing I'm going to do is power it on and just see if we do get any RGB output on this screen here. So I'll just turn it on and hopefully you should see this loading. Now we have got a black haze there, but that's all. There's no actual output coming out. So it just look as if it is trying to turn on. Now you can see that the lights are on the Amiga and it is beginning to boot. Now hopefully it should boot to the workbench, and you should be able to see that on the video grab as well, because I've got it connected straight through the scan double that's fitted in this machine. You can see it's booted to workbench, but on the RGB it's got no output at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to open this up and we're going to have a look inside. So there is actually no screws in this machine. He uses it solely for testing up his modifications and hardware. Now he has his little control panel here, and this is connected to a ROM switcher, but also to a hard drive switcher. He's basically running two hard drives in this. This allows him to swap between the two, but also allows him to swap between the ROMs, so he can swap between 1.3 and also the 2 version, which is great because he can just swap and choose as he wants it to boot. But also he has here is the Go Drive control panel. Now inside, let's get this open up. You'll probably see inside there's a lot of ribbons. Now I'm just going to remove this ribbon here for the keyboard. This has got the solid membrane in as well. I mean, I don't think there's anything he's missed in this machine. I mean, just look at that. It's a palaver of mods. It's the most modded Amiga I've ever seen in my life. So first up, there's a ROM switcher here, which also has that external display which allows us to switch between the ones. But it also has the two hard drives, like I say here. There's a TF1230 accelerator there installed. Gives it a 68030 CPU and more memory, which is more performance. He's also got an IndyVision Mark III scan doubler fitted as well, which is pushed over the chip there. The Go Drive control is there, which plugs into the floppy drive and allows you to have the floppy drive and the Go Drive, which allows you to boot ADF images basically off a USB. And this here is a fast IDE adapter. Now what that does, I've no idea. I guess it speeds up the IDE, but I've never actually seen one of them myself. So if anybody knows, drop me a comment down below what that one does. But as you can see, there's a lot of stuff going on in this machine, but unfortunately the RGB does not want to work. What I think's happening is, I know it's displaying okay because the HDMI is working, so the video circuitry itself seems to be okay in the Amiga. Problem may be somewhere between this RGB connector and the video circuitry. As you actually follow the signal through the board, it actually ends up at these ferrite beads along here. Now that is the first thing I'm going to check, is the ferrite beads. Before we start probing around this board, a quick thanks to the sponsor of this video, PCBWAY. Now if you work on retro computers or electronic projects, you know that sometimes you need custom PCBs for adapters to repair boards or upgrade the hardware. PCBWAY makes it very easy to go from PCB design to professionally manufactured circuit boards. They support everything from simple 2-layer boards to complex multi-layer designs, and they also offer assembly service. A lot of the retro computing community actually uses PCBWAY for their adapters and other hardware mods. So if you're designing your own electronic projects or making your own projects that are on there, they're definitely worth checking out. Alright, let's get back to this Amiga. So on that note, let's crack on and get back to the Amiga. So these here are the ferrite beads. You can see these ones here. So it should indeed be like so. So we'll just go along and try each of these. The continuity. I think these are the red, green and the blue signal, and they come through these resistors here, but correct me if I'm wrong. That one's good. That one's good. Just leaves one now, doesn't it? Ah, there you go. Now that doesn't look good. So it looks to me like that ferrite bead has gone. That one is good, but this one is actually physically gone. Could that be causing me the issue? I'm not sure where that goes to, but we could have a look on the Amiga PCB Explorer if you want to just see where that goes to. So the RGB signal comes from Lisa here. I think it goes through these transistors here to some capacitors, and then up through these resistors, and then up through these ferrite beads here. So these ferrite beads here are the ones we tested. So first we have the red signal, next we have the green, and then we have the blue. Then after that we have negative 12 volt, positive 12 volt, and then this one is VCC, which is basically the 5 volt. And that was the one that had actually failed on ours, because basically they act as a filter, but they also act in simple terms as a wire. So if that goes open, then obviously we're not getting the 5 volt through to where we should get it. So hopefully now that's fixed, then that is going to solve the issue. So let's just crack on and get that tested. But what we can do to test this theory now is I can bridge across there with a pair of tweezers. And we can see if indeed we get a signal. So I'm just going to get some tweezers, which I have here. We're just going to turn the Amiga on. And I'm just going to quickly bridge across this one here. And we do indeed have a signal now by the looks of it. And it actually loaded a workbench. Can't be that easy to fix. That still doesn't look right. It looks very blue. Maybe the green's missing or something. Or the red, I think, is there. We just need to check that over. But I think what we're going to do first is we're going to get that ferrite bead replaced. Now, I have a scrap board down there. I'll get the hot tweezers and we'll get that sorted now. So, shall we just turn that on now and just see what happens? Now we've tested the others, that one was definitely gone. So I'm just going to quickly turn that on. It would help if it was plugged in, wouldn't it? So, we have actually got a display. Now have I nudged something there because, oh, that's gone grey now. I don't know why I went red at first. Whether this scan doubler is causing a bit of interference, but the RGB is behaving a hell of a lot better. Now it's booted to workbench, but those colours don't look right. What's the plan now that doesn't work? The plan is to check out these resistors here. Now there's 2 per colour, so there's 2 for the red there, there's 2 for the green there, and 2 for the blue there. Now these should be 25 and 50, and that repeats itself 25 and 50, 25 and 50. So we're going to check them out. Now if that doesn't work and they all seem in spec, etc., what we're next going to do is go to the underneath of the board and check out these capacitors here. Now these are the 3 caps that join to those resistors which take the signal. So we're just going to replace those 3 capacitors, those ceramics, and see at all if it makes a difference. Well, that's my plan. So the first thing I'm going to check, now we've got this board out, is these bank of resistors here. Now there should be 25 ohm and 50 ohm, and they go in pairs for the RGB, so the red, green, blue signal. So we're just going to check these and see what they're measuring. So the first one is 25, which is bob on. This one should be 50, which again is good. The next one should be 25. Let's make sure again I'm on, which it is. And then another 50. Correctamundo. Next, you've guessed it, 25. And yet again, 50. So they are okay. So let's just have a look at these capacitors underneath. What I'm going to do, in case these have gone out of spec, is I'm just going to replace these with the ones off my scrap board. I'm about to boot this up now and see if it works on the RGB. So at the moment we've got a workbench and we can't really tell now whether it is actually any different. To me it looks quite good actually, it looks okay, but we won't know until we actually run a game. Now we look, that does look, is it better or is it just me imagining things? So we'll go for Project X 2nd edition. I'm going to run that. Let's just see if there is actually any difference at all. No, I think it's still got that blue tint to it, that blue haze. If you know what's causing this, you see the blue in the clouds there? It is really weird. It's like the blue is coming through more than any other colour. Like it's too strong perhaps. It's very, very strange. So drop me a comment down below if you think you know what's wrong with this. So I'm going to have to leave the video there now, and unfortunately we haven't fully fixed this Amiga 1200. We do have RGB output, which we didn't have before, but it does have that weird blue fault. Hopefully in the next few weeks we'll get back onto this and I use the oscilloscope and we'll do some probing, etc., and see if we can actually find the signals and see if we can find out what's going on with this machine. It's very strange. I've changed the capacitors, I've checked the resistors, and we've checked the ferrite beads and they all seem good. Now we know Lisa is okay because it's displaying fine anyway on the HDMI through the scan doubler. It's not an issue with that. Now a big thank you to the people that pay the 99p membership, helping keep the lights on in the shed. And also don't forget to check out my YouTube buddies down below. You got likes of Captain Commodore and 8-bit Retro Refix. If you're new here and you've never been here before, then please hit that subscribe button as it helps the channel so much. And everybody please hit the like button as that also helps me a lot as well. Thanks again to PCBWAY for sponsoring this video, and don't forget, if you're designing electronic projects, repairing boards or retro hardware upgrades, check them out at www.pcbway.com. And on that note, I shall see you next time on Retro for You. See you soon guys, bye!